Etymology and historical origin of the baby name Ernest. Ernest was adopted by the English from the Old French, Frankish, language. In Old High German, the vocabulary word eornost meant serious business, battle to the death. Today, the English vocabulary word earnest still means serious, intense, sober. Ernest was one of many given names brought to England by the Norman French in the 11th century, but it was not widely used until the early 18th century when King George I came to the English throne, hailing from the German House of Hanover. Irish playwright and humorist Oscar Wilde famously used the name for his protagonist in the 19th century play The Importance of Being Earnest, 1895, aptly subtitled A Trivial Comedy for Serious People. See literary references below. Ernest is also strongly associated with the hard-drinking, adventurous living and Nobel Prize-winning American author Ernest Hemingway, 1899–1961. Personality of the boy named Ernest. The number 9 personality represents the completion or ending of the cycle, and a need for perfection. This is the personality that moves from self to a greater understanding and compassion for the human condition and the world order. They want to make the world a better place. 9s are capable of great spiritual and humanitarian achievements. They are courageous and fearless, able to fight great battles on behalf of worthy causes. These personalities will not tolerate injustice. They are compassionate people with a strong sensitivity to others. They are able to both educate and inspire. Friendships and relationships are the lifeblood to the 9, and they place a high value on love and affection. 9s are often exceptionally gifted artistically, and they have a keen imagination and enterprising mind. Popularity of the boy named Ernest. Ernest is an example of a true turn-of-the-century favorite, the turn of last century, that is. In other words, Ernest was the 30th most popular boy's name in America in 1900. In the late 1800s, Ernest got as high as number 21 on the charts. It wouldn't be until 1957 that the name dropped off the top 100 list for the first time since the U.S. government began tracking naming trends in 1880. In the 1960s, 70s and 80s, Ernest's decline in popular usage was so slow and steady it was hardly noticeable. It wasn't until the 1990s that future parents really began shunning old Ernest. No longer a serious contender on the American male naming charts, Ernest has become a name choice for the very traditional parent. It's old-fashioned, outdated and really quite earnest. It may take another generation to clean off the cobwebs and hope for a comeback, but in the meantime we applaud the parents brave enough to pick such a grandfatherly name. Ernie is an obvious nickname. Quick facts on Ernest. Gender, boy. Origin, English. Number of syllables, 2. Ranking popularity, 933. Pronunciation, eornost. Simple meaning, serious. Characteristics of Ernest. Independent, philanthropy, perfection, intuitive, oneness, idealistic, multi-talented. Cultural references to the baby name Ernest. Literary characters of the baby name Ernest. Ernest is the protagonist of Oscar Wilde's comedy of manners, The Importance of Being Earnest, a trivial comedy for serious people, which was first performed in London in 1895, and probably remains his most popular play. John, Jack, Worthing maintains an alter ego in London in the persona of Ernest, his make-believe younger brother, whose foibles he is constantly called upon to remedy. In the country, he is known as a sober and conservative gentleman, whereas in the disguise of Ernest in London, he is able to follow a rather libertine lifestyle. As Ernest, he proposes to Gwendolen, who accepts him, mainly based upon the fact that his name is Ernest. She has stated that she must marry a man named Ernest. Of course. Lady Bracknell, Gwendolen's harridan of a mother, does not approve of the match, however, as Mr. Worthington, whatever his true name, was a foundling. Many plot twists and identity switches later, it is discovered that Worthington is in fact a relative of Lady Bracknell, having been lost in a train station as an infant by his nursemaid. This suddenly makes him suitable as a suitor for Gwendolen. That young lady, however, does not want to marry him now because his name is not Ernest, but Jack. Of course. But not to worry, army records of Jack's father are examined and prove him to have been one Ernest Moncrief, for whom, as firstborn, Jack would have been named. So he is Ernest, after all, and that is important, because otherwise, Gwendolen wouldn't have married him. So now you know the importance of being earnest. Famous people named Ernest: Ernest Tubb, country musician; Ernest Hemingway, American writer; Ernest Borgnine, actor. Historic figures with the name Ernest. Ernest Hemingway was one of the most influential writers of the 20th century, and won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1954. Born in Illinois, Ernest served as an ambulance driver in World War I, where he was seriously wounded. This experience produced his novel, A Farewell to Arms. During the 1920s, Ernest was a fixture in Paris Euro generation Euro expatriate community, where he was a friend and copyright copyrightee of Gertrude Stein. During this time, The Sun Also Rises, his first novel, was published. Throughout the 30s and 40s, Ernest was a journalist in the Spanish Civil War, as well as reporting on the invasion of Normandy and the liberation of Paris. Ernest Hemingway was renowned for his Euro style, personal as well as literary, elevating such sports as safaris, bull riding, deep-sea fishing and hard drinking to iconic levels by his participation in and admiration of them. In later years in the United States, Ernest spent a good deal of time in Key West, Florida, with trips to Cuba, and finally ended his days in Ketchum, Idaho by a self-inflicted bullet wound. Married 4 times, Ernest was the father of 3 sons, as well as the grandfather of the actresses Margot and Mariel Hemingway.